Right, so as far as the lab manual is concerned and the questions I'll be asking, do you guys have that lab manual with you? Let's turn it to the end of the first lab, lab 1, which we've sort of started doing, microscope use, right? What page is that? That's page 13, I think, in mine. I don't know if it's the same in yours. Microscope use data interpretation. Do you see those questions there? So ultimately, we'll talk about the answers to each of these questions, right? And I'll make this due not Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. Okay? Is that clear? All right. So a couple other things that I want to talk about in terms of microscopes and how they work. And then we'll move on to the next lab activity. Okay? So if you guys saw things, right, how many people switched magnification during their observations? Right? They went to a higher and higher magnification. What happens to the field of view as you increase magnification? Do you guys understand what I mean by field of view? Right? It gets larger or smaller? Smaller is correct, right? If I double the magnification, how much smaller do you expect the field of view to become? Should, theoretically at least, become half. Hopefully next week we can do a little measuring of that and confirm that. But you get the idea, right? If I were to put a microscope, how big is the field of view here? This is somebody who took a plastic ruler, right? There's no law saying that it has to be a stage, right? You could take a plastic ruler. Where do I have a plastic ruler here? I got one right here. Boom, right here, transparent plastic ruler. I can just put this on the stage. How big is my field of view? Looks like about 1.2 millimeters, right? Does that make sense? And if I doubled the magnification, what would be the size of the field of view? It'd be 0.6, probably, right? You can confirm that later. Does that make sense? So, if you saw an ant, if you took away that and you saw an ant right here, you could have a guess, a ballpark figure of how big that ant is, right? Those things you saw, if you knew the size of the field of view under the magnification that you were looking at, the things you saw swimming around, you could give an eyeball estimate of how big they were. Do you agree? Okay. So much for field of view. Here's something else. The depth of field. Depth of field is a measure of the thickness of the focal plane of an image. Okay? What happens as magnification increases? What happens to the depth of field? Do you guys understand what I'm talking about here? The focal plane. The plane of what is in focus. As you raise and lower the stage, you raise and lower the focal plane of the image. Consider this little bee. Is he in focus? Yes or no? Both answers are correct, right? Part of his body is in focus, and part of his body is blurry, right? So, this is a close-up with a camera. The thickness of the focal plane of this image is how thick? It is, well, what part of his body is in focus? His head. What about his abdomen? Blurry. So the thickness of the focal plane of this picture is less than the thickness of a bee. You agree? Right? So in the same way, right, if I zoom in on somebody, right, and take a picture, the people in the background will be blurry, right? If I zoom out and take a picture of the same people, am I more or less likely to get the people in the background to be in focus also? More or less likely? More likely, right? So as magnification, which of those two instances represents high magnification? The close-up shot or the far-away shot? The close-up shot is the highly magnified shot, right? My field of view is reduced. The focal plane, what happens to that? As the magnification increases, the depth of field, the depth of the focal plane is decreased also. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, that's enough of that. All right, so I'm gonna talk about one other thing here, and that is the scientific method, and then we're going to do another lab. You guys doing okay? Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna skip this part of the lecture, and we're just gonna go on to the next lab. So the next lab that we're going to look at is effectiveness of hand washing. So everybody turn the page. I think it's 15, and that's where we'll stop.